we are back again with the fourth lecture of the week 1, and our topic today is law and ethics and responsibilities, because these are some of the central concepts in ethics and business ethics. So, we are going to talk about those. Our plan of lecture is going to be like this, as you can see, that I have told earlier that I will speak on the difference between law and ethics. What is the difference between being illegal and unethical? So, or what is the difference between legal and ethical? So, we will be touching upon this topic today. And then corporate accountability, I said I will be talking in a slightly greater details, and so the time has come to take this subject up. And then we will be talking about something called corporate social responsibility in connection to this ethical accountability for some actions and the responsibilities of ethical corporation. So, without further ado, let's start the lecture. So, first of all, the question that I think is legitimate to ask here is that we have been told that ethics is a normative, prescriptive kind of study of behavior, which tells us what we should do and what we should not do. So, in that case, then the question is quite natural to ask that, for example, ethics will say that stealing is wrong, right? But someone might say, but that is what law also would say, because law also is a normative, judgmental study about behavior. It also says what people should be doing and what people should not be doing. So, for example, on stealing, their judgments are going to merge. Therefore, the question is that then is there any difference between law and ethics, or there is none? Between the illegal and the unethical, is there no difference at all? So, are we in all this just talking about what the legal boundaries are and to stay within the legal boundaries? Specifically, when you are talking about this entity called ethical corporation, do we merely mean therefore that the corporation should comply with the legal requirements? Is that all that we are claiming? The answer is no. But in order to justify that no, I have to tell you where do the differences lie between law and ethics. So, that is our next topic. First of all, the difference is there in their origin or how they are created. Now, laws, some of you may know, are created by a very structured process. It has to be a judiciary act. It has to be a legislative body has to look into it. In our case, it has to go through various procedures before it is tabled in Parliament. Until then, it remains a bill and so on. So, there are certain formal processes by which a law is created, but rules of ethics are not created in that manner. So, the creation of from the point of view of origin or creation, law and ethics are not at all the same. Then next point is, how are they supported? If you look at laws, then there is a whole legal system to support the laws. If you look into Indian Penal Code, then that is there in order to support the kind of laws that we have, whereas our ethical rules are not supported in the similar manner. The Indian Constitution or the Penal Code is not supposed to provide any support for the ethical rules. All right. So, even from the support or the justification point of view, they stand apart. The third point is about this, that laws, after all, are laws of the land. Every law is such that it belongs to a country. So, there are the geopolitical boundaries of the country, and within that boundary the laws are meaningful. If you travel from India to, say, for example, to Singapore, the same laws of India are not going to be applicable to you. The Singaporean laws would be applicable to you. Yes, there are exceptions where the laws may be the same between countries, but many laws, I hope you understand the point, are country specific. So that's why I'm saying that laws are limited by the very nature in the way they are created and by the geopolitical boundaries of a country, whereas ethical rules are not limited by the boundaries of a country. The same rule may apply no matter where you are. Okay, for example, if it is unethical to cheat on your spouse, that remains unethical even if you travel from, say, India to Singapore or to some other country, for example. This is a trivial example, of course, but I hope the point is taken. And then finally, the enforcement of the laws. How are the laws implemented? And you see that the laws are implemented. There is a whole mechanism for seeing that the laws are followed, and there are consequences. There are penalty if you do not follow a law. So there is some sort of a force, there is a lot of power in the enforcement of a law. The same cannot be said about ethics. When we're speaking about the ethical should or should not, there is no external force or external consequence of being unethical. It's supposed to be more internal. The drive should come from within. If you believe in conscience, then that might be the motivator behind that. That is the source of your implementation. In any way, it is rooted in your will, your own desire, your own volition. So it's driven by the values that you have, but not by the external legal mechanism. So there are these important differences. The relation between law and ethics, we may conceptualize it like this, at least this is my humble opinion, that we may see it like this, that you may think of it as a Venn diagram of this kind. There are enough things here in the overlap where law and ethics would both agree. You pick about a behavior, law would say it is wrong, ethics would say it's wrong. As for example, stealing what is not yours, to misappropriate something, that is wrong, both in the legal sense and ethical sense. Similarly, what is good, you might find the law agrees that that is good and ethics also agrees that that is good. So there are a lot of similarities here in the overlap area. Having said that, we can still say, but there are areas where they do not merge. For example, there may be things in this area which is legal, but not necessarily ethical. All right. For example, I have given an example here that because laws depend on countries, so a certain country may formulate a law that for the same work they can legally pay different wages depending upon the religious origin of that person or the religious group of that person. Suppose that law is there in a country, then what they are doing is discrimination for the same work, but it is legal. But it may not be still considered as morally right. So you have found something could be legal but not ethical. That shows a difference. Similarly, there might be things that are ethical but not legal, not strictly legal. So, for example, very, very unfair laws, coercive laws. They are laws, so what they allow people to do is something that you think can go, but it's not really something that you can say it is ethical. So there are these differences that one should keep in mind when we are talking about law and ethics. So therefore, the upshot of this is going to be like this, that when we speak of the ethical corporation, we do not mean necessarily just legal compliance. We are not talking about a legally compliant corporation only. though it may be the minimum expectation from such a corporation that it is not behaving in an illegal manner, but that doesn't automatically make the corporation ethical. That would have been the case if law and ethics were identical, but we have just established that that is not the case. Law and ethics are not the same. So that's my first point. Second, then in ethical corporation, where would we see, or where would we understand that the corporation is behaving ethically? Now, to that, my submission is that ethics is sometimes seen more clearly when the laws are silent about something. There is no clear guidance from law. It's not legally mandatory, but the person or the persons do something out of their own will, and that's where you start to see for the first time that their behavior has gained an ethical dimension. Same is the case with business ethics. There are a number of areas which are not covered by laws. Laws are general and they cannot cover every specific area. So there are enough areas within business decisions where there is no clear guideline, where there is no clear guidance from the law, and you do not know whether something this is right or that is right, and that is where you exercise your value considerations to find out what would be the ethical way to do here, what is the right thing to do. Example I have given, for example, very gray areas. You know what is clearly wrong, what is clearly right, but in between there are enough area that we would call neither black nor white, but large gray areas, and these are cases where one needs to get the guidance from ethical considerations. What is the right thing to do? For example, taking credit for somebody's work. Okay, somebody has done the work, but other person is taking the credit. Now, there is no law that says that you have to do that. You will speak about the intellectual property rights and so on, but suppose the matter is such that these are two friends and there is never has been any legal agreement that this is my intellectual property, you cannot take it. But suddenly the other friend decides to cheat on this friend and misappropriating the idea. There is no law here. But is that the right thing to do? And the answer would be coming from ethics. Similarly, there can be ethical dilemmas. Now, what an ethical dilemma is a very typical situation. What it is a conflict situation between at least two competing obligations. When I say competing obligations, I mean two duties, and they compete with each other. Meaning this, that they are providing you with at least two difficult choices, each of which might be right. You see, if the choices were between what is right and what is clearly wrong, you are not in a dilemma. You know which one is to do. You still may not do it, but you know which one is the right thing to do. I am talking about situations where each option is equally right or each option is equally bad, difficult. So which one do you choose and why? So there is almost like a stalemate situation, and those are known as ethical dilemmas. For example, I have given a small example here. Suppose you hear one day as a human resource person that an employee has died in workplace in accident. Which is very unfortunate, but it is also found that he was intoxicated at that time when this accident happened. So now the family has come to ask for compensation from the company, and the company clearly is upset about the accident, but it's also the fact that the employee was drunk, so company doesn't want to pay. On the other hand, the family has talked to the union. The union is after the company and threatening a strike to halt the work process and so on. So what is the right thing to do here? How do you resolve this? There are a number of choices. You may listen to this family and give them compensation and thereby create a lot of problems for you in future, because after all the person was drunk and then the workers may think that we can get away with that, or you may not give any compensation to the family, turn them away, and what happens is that the workers are going to be tremendously upset, the union is going to continue with the strike idea, and your production is going to be halted, and it's going to land into other problems and so on. Or you can think about a partial compensation, etc. So there are a number of choices. The question is, what is the right thing to do here and why? So in such cases, business ethics are supposed to be your savior to give you some action guidance on those situations. All right, and then the next topic that I take on, which I said I will in my lecture 3, I believe, that it's about accountability of a corporation. And I have said that the issue is like this, that the corporation is made of people. So our primary responsibility or primary accountability can be pinned onto the people, but can we also hold the corporation as ethically responsible for its actions? Now there is a big debate in business ethics around this, and lately that had been fueled by some writers such as Buchan, for example, who has said that a corporation by nature is being an artificial entity. It can only pursue its own self-interest, and it is not capable of acting otherwise. If you ask it to be altruistic, if you ask it to be caring for others or pursuing everybody's interest, it cannot. So it has been compared to being a psychopath of some sort, who are incapable of the feelings of others. Now, is that the case? The corporation has to be treated like a self-interest pursuing entity of a special kind, and we cannot assign any ethical responsibility to it? Business ethics would say, no, we can still assign responsibility to a corporation. Why? Because apart from the people inside the corporation itself has an internal decision structure, which is a process through which the corporation takes or makes its own decisions. So this is not exactly one individual or a group of individuals, it's much more than that, which results into a corporate decision. For example, when the corporation decides to launch a product, it's not any one particular individual's decision, it's not also a decision of a particular group. The corporation itself decides after going through various layers of decision structure. It comes to a decision. So there is a structure by which the corporation makes its own decision, and that is where we can pin accountability also, because it has a capability to make a decision, which we can clearly say it's its own. Right? So this is almost like saying that out of its own free choice, it has chosen to do this. So this is a point. And second is that the corporation is also clearly owner of values and beliefs. In this, it's almost like an individual. Its own beliefs and values are manifested in what we call organizational culture. All right, it shows what are the priorities, what are its priorities, what does it believe in, what are its vision, and how it's carrying itself towards that vision or that goal, and so on. Therefore, so the actions, when we are looking at the corporate deeds, corporate actions, practices, you can call them good or bad because they are linked to this internal value system, belief system, that is nothing but the organizational culture. So in other words, what we have just heard, that business ethics is going to say that corporations can be considered as ethically accountable. you can hold individuals in it accountable, but there is this entity called corporation, and it too, because of this sort of reasons, can be held as ethically accountable. That was the ground on which we are now going to place this point, that then if they are accountable, if ethical corporations can be talked about as accountable, to whom you can ascribe responsibility, then what are those responsibilities? All right, and that question we can discuss within the context of a technical concept called this corporate social responsibility, or CSR. So, this is going to give us the clear sort of an idea about what these responsibilities are and what is the nature of these responsibilities. When we are talking about CSR, or corporate social responsibility, the very well known, the most well known and very established model that we use is that of Carroll's. The name is A.B. Carroll, and it is a 4-part model. I have given a direct quotation from Carroll. Carroll has written extensively on CSR, or corporate social responsibility, but his first article and the one that was a path breaker came out in 1979, where he is talking about the social responsibility of business. And you take a look, and he is saying that it encompasses economic, legal, ethical and discretionary expectations that society has of organizations at a given point of time. So, the responsibility is all of this. So, we will try to see what he meant. So, first, economic responsibilities, legal responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, philanthropic responsibilities, or discretionary expectations. And mind you that this is all of this is CSR. So, it is not that only one particular set is the responsibility of an organization according to Carroll. All of this are actually corporate social responsibility. So, first of all, economic responsibility. What does he mean? Basically, the economic activity of the organization, for example, producing the goods and services and to sell them so that you make profit and you remain solvent. That is your economic responsibility. The economic responsibility has under layers. For example, you have borrowed money or you have drawn capital from the market, you have to return that capital with good value to the investors, you have to pay salary to your employees and so on, and there's also everyday operations cost something. So, all of this is under this economic responsibility, which is considered by Carroll as the organization's social responsibility. Then there is the legal responsibility to obey or to comply with the law of the land. I have told you that this is part of that. That is also social responsibility. So, the corporation which is engaged in illegal activities not showing responsibility. All right. So, that is there. And then comes this ethical responsibilities, by which Carroll wants to mean to do what is right or what seems to be the fair thing to do beyond what is the call of the law. So, what is required by the law, that you are doing anyway. It is over and above what is legally required. That is where you get to see the ethical responsibilities. For example, if it is a unsafe product, you voluntarily recall the product. Before the law comes at you and say that you have to recall this, the organization itself owns up a mistake and say that we would like to voluntarily recall all the unsafe products, because we do not want to harm the consumers. This is philanthropic. which Carroll said is discretionary. It's up to the corporation whether they want to engage in this, but this is philanthropic in the sense that you want to do good. This is what altruism is all about. You want to serve people, the society, not just the local community, not just your consumers, but the society in general. So out of compassion, for example, you donate to charities, to good causes, good social causes, or that you supply, say, water purifiers to the local schools which do not have those. So these would be philanthropic activities. Now, what we are seeing here, that Carroll clearly thinks that CSR, or corporate social responsibility, is a multi-layered concept. You saw the stats, and the point, however, here is that it is not sequential. This is Carroll speaking in 1999. He made it quite clear that even though it looks like a step by step sort of a model, 4-part model, but actually it is not sequential. So he is not saying that first you meet the economic responsibilities, then you meet the legal responsibilities, only then you think about ethical responsibilities. It is not like that. In fact, in 2001, as you can see here, Carroll and Buchholz made it very clear that true CSR means meeting all 4 layers simultaneously. So that is the challenge, how you are going to meet all of them at the same time. There are many new ideas about CSR, which I am calling next generation understanding of CSR, and I am just going to touch upon them. I have talked about the most popular and the most established model, that is Carroll's, but here is something from Simon Zadek, who has talked about CSR, saying that there have been various generations of CSR. Earlier, CSR used to be only occasional activity by business. Only when societies after them, company would engage into CSR, but in a way that does not interfere with their mainstream commercial activity. So that is the first generation CSR. The second generation was about making it CSR as a long-term strategy, so that it's not occasional, it is somehow connected to the business activity, but ultimately it is driven by its own self-interest. Strategy here means what would be good or beneficial for the company itself. Look at what Zadek is saying about the third generation CSR, that it is a proactive choice of the business to take up CSR as its duty. So it's a voluntary function consistent with its mainstream activity, where it is integrated with the mainstream business activities, and it is a choice that business is taking on its own. This is how Zadek has visualized what CSR should be. Wieser is also a thinker, well-known thinker in CSR of today, and what he is suggesting that the traditional model is simply have to be replaced by a new understanding of CSR. He has talked about the earlier traditional model as CSR 1.0, and the one that he endorses is called CSR 2.0, and he has said that for various reasons CSR 1.0 has failed. It's clearly seen that the companies have not been able to deliver the social good that they were supposed to for a variety of reasons. So now he says that the age of responsibility has come, and business must, out of its own choice, should take up more responsibility. And watch the term that he is using, that it has to be made part of the DNA of the organization, that is embedded from the very core of the business. At every single level, the social responsibility will have to be integrated in corporate culture, in their strategy, in their governance, in their product design, and so on and so forth. So this gives us some idea about how currently CSR, or social responsibilities of business or corporation, is being thought about. Now, what is the upshot of this discussion in connection to the ethical corporation? What I wanted to place here is that if you look at it from the lens of CSR or corporate social responsibility, then the responsibilities of an ethical corporation is going to be a much larger set than its mere financial responsibilities. Whether you want to call it corporate social responsibilities is not the issue. The idea is that you need to understand that there are much more in the basket of obligations for an ethical corporation. What exactly would go in, that we are going to elaborate in the coming weeks, but it's a much larger than its mere financial responsibilities. Second, you saw in the discussions of Visar and Zadek that the society is increasingly expecting business to voluntarily, to proactively think on behalf of society where it can make difference. So, particularly society wants corporations to own up accountability for problems that they have created, either partly or wholly. So, this is where the corporate accountability discussion needs to come in. And the new mandate, you heard from Visar and others, that ethical considerations are not just a layer, they must be integrated well enough into the business decisions and policies. So, this was the main reason why I brought in the discussion of corporate social responsibility. I have given some references here in case you want to read up more on the points that I have mentioned. For example, this is Carroll's 1979 article, this is 1991, and I have told you that he has written many more, but this might give you an idea about this to start reading about corporate social responsibility. This is Zadek, who I was talking about, and this is Visar. His writings are available. So, these are some, just sharing the references in case you want to read extra on this. And then this is where I am going to close the session also, that what we have done today is to make a distinction between ethics and law. We have also said whether a corporation can be viewed as ethically accountable, responsible for its actions, and then we have talked about whether this, if the corporation can be held as ethically responsible, then what would be, how would we even visualize, conceptualize those responsibilities. I have taken the help of this concept called corporate social responsibility to etch out the outline of some of those responsibilities, and then I have given you some of the current understanding of CSR. So, this is what we have discussed today, and I hope this was understandable to you, and we will come back with more in the subsequent lectures. Thank you very much.